Okay, so as I was saying, as far as the characteristics of the horizontal curve are concerned, you already know them because you have studied them in highway and surveying. So I will quickly go through them. So the main point is PI, point of intersection, where the two tangents are meeting. Okay, and then you have the point PC, which is the point of curvature, where the horizontal curve begins. Then you have point PT, which is the point of tangency, which is the end point of the horizontal curve. Then you have the tangent length, which is a length between PC and PI, okay, or PI and PT. Okay, so the distance along the first tangent from PC to PI or along the second tangent from PI to PT is the same, okay, which is the tangent length. Then we have external distance here. What is external distance? If you draw a line from PI to the center of the curve, and the point where this line intersects, they are calling it as 0.5 here. They are denoting it with a number because this point is not important for design of the curve. This point is not a does not have any geometric name. It can be any point. Keep in mind it may and may not be in the middle. It may or may not be in the middle. Okay, so 0.5 is not always in the middle. Anyways, wherever their point is, you measure the distance from PI to that point, and that will be external distance. So you draw a straight line from PI to the curve, and where the line intersects the curve, that is the 0.5, and you measure the distance from PI to 0.5, that will be known as external distance. And then if you extend this line to the chord, okay, if you extend this line to the chord of the curve, then the point where the line intersects the chord is denoted here as 0.6 here, 0.6, and the distance between the curve and the chord is known as m, middle ordinate. So this one is the external distance from PI to the curve, and then from PI to the chord it is middle ordinate, and it is along the same line. You can see it is along the same line. Okay, then we have LC, which is the length of the chord, the straight distance between PC and PT. LC, straight distance between PC and PT, the straight line distance. And then we have angle delta, which is the angle made by the curve. Angle made by the curve. So the line which you drew from PI to the center, that line was intersecting the curve in delta by 2 on each side. Okay, so half of the angle, delta by 2. And then the delta is also the angle between the two tangents, so we also call it angle of deflection. So angle of curve and the angle of deflection are the same. Then we have radius, which is the point, which is the distance from the curve to the center. And then we have the L. Sorry, I did not write it here, but L means the distance from PC to PT on a curve. PC to PT on the curve, along the curve. So L is the length of the curve. Okay, L is the length of the curve, and LC is the length of the chord. So LC is the length of the straight line, and L is the length of the curve. The equations to calculate these parameters are given here, and we already have the equation for the degree of the curve and radius. Okay, so that equation is part of it. So these are the equations to calculate the tangent length, the length of the curve, middle ordinate, external distance, okay, and the length of the chord. And you can see in all these equations you need r and delta, okay, and in the equation of the curve you also need degree of the curve as well. So d is degree of the curve. D is degree of the curve, not diameter. Okay, we are not using diameter at all. There's no diameter. Okay. Let us look at an example. We have two tangents which are meeting at a station 3200 plus 15. The angle between the tangents is given here, 14 degrees angle of deflection. Okay, the radius of the curve is given 1200 feet. So from PC to the center, 1200 feet. You have to find out the length of the curve, find PC and PT, and then also find other characteristics of the curve, including LC, M, and E. Okay, you have to find out all these characteristics. So basically, we have to use the table which I showed you previously in the last slide. You have to use the full table. Okay, so let us begin. Okay, and so the data which is given in the question is here. Now my first question, because this is what I explained yesterday, if PI station is 3200 plus 15, how much distance is it? 3200 plus 15 in terms of distance, how much is it? So if I ask you, write 3200 plus 15 stations as the distance. So how much distance will it be? Yeah, 3215. Yes, good. Yeah, you got the idea. Okay, now give me the values of these parameters. Okay, start with the tangent length. Give me the tangent length first. How much is the tangent length? Okay, again, the parameters are given here. Okay, R delta is given here. Give me the tangent length.
147.3.
Okay, 147.3 feet. Okay, next is length, but for length you need degree of the curve. For length you need degree of the curve. So D is 5729.58 divided by R. This is from the previous lecture, okay, from last lecture. So give me D, then you can give me length of the curve.
4.7.
4.7 and 7.
7.7, yes.
7. Okay, and this is in degrees. Okay, now give me length. I'm happy that you guys are speaking up. This is good. This is what I really want. Instead of typing, if you speak, it is good.
293.5.
5 feet length of the curve. Okay, then we have middle ordinate. How much is that?
$8.94.
8.94. Okay, then E.
$9.01.
01. Okay, then LC. Last thing.
$292.48.
292, yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now you calculate all the parameters, and this was like one part of the question. The other part is using these parameters. Now calculate PC and PT. Okay, PC and PT. Now for PC and PT, I have PI. I have the station of PI. From PI, I can calculate PC. What is the distance between PI and PC? Tell me. What do we call the distance between PI
Station BI minus station BC.
Great. We don't have a station PC, right? We don't have a station PC. Okay, so I'm asking, if I want to find out a station PC, then I should have the distance between PI and PC, right? So what do we call the distance between PI and PC? What do we call the distance between PI and PC? Which of these parameters is the distance between PI and PC? Just calculate these parameters, right?
T.
Which of them is between PI and PC?
T.
T, the tangent length, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this was my question. Okay. Yeah, the distance between PI and PC is the difference of stations. Yeah, good. Okay, so I should take pi and subtract tangent length to get PC. Pi minus tangent length will give you PC. Okay, so PC 3215, which is the distance of pi, right? You converted it to distance. So this is what you told me, right? And minus tangent length, which is 147.3. Okay. So how much distance, in terms of distance, how much will it be?
$3067.7.
3067.7. And how do I write it as stations? How do you write it as stations? What plus what?
3000 plus 66.7.
Okay. So this is PC. And now how do I calculate PT? How do I calculate PT? Yeah, tell me. How do I calculate PT?
Doctor, I have a question. The distance between the station and the other is 100 feet?
Be 3200, right? That's 3000. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Can you say your question again? What was the question?
What is the distance between the between two stations again? 100 feet?
100 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is 3000. 3000 means 3000, right? So between so PT, how do I calculate PT? Station of PT.
The station plus the tangent.
Okay. Now this can be done. Okay, but there's a problem. The problem is, first of all, then you are saying PI is in the middle. Okay, then you are saying PI is in the middle, which is not the case. Okay, if in the field, the second tangent will not exist. In the field, when the contractor will start laying out the curve, he will not lay out the second tangent. From PC, he will go to PI, and then from PC onwards, he will lay out the curve. Okay, so from PC, he will not lay out any point on the second tangent. He will just go to the go along the curve to PT directly. So this tangent will not be laid out in the field. Okay, 1 point. Second point, you would agree that PT can also be found as PC plus L, right? PC plus L will also give you PT, right? Agreed? Okay. This is the case, right? L is the length of the curve, so PC plus L will give you PT. Okay. Now, if this approach, adding the tangent length, if it was giving you the same answer as this one, then we can accept it. If you do Pi plus T and you get the same answer as PC plus L, then we can accept it. No problem, right? Whether the second curve is in the field or is not in the field is not my concern. But PC plus L will give you a different answer than Pi plus T. So we cannot use both the approaches. Okay, this is what I am telling you for the sake of the examination. The correct approach is PC plus L. And the reason, I told you, the reason is from PC onwards, everything is measured to Pi. Okay, and the second tangent doesn't exist. The second tangent will not be laid out in the field. From PC to PT, you will lay out all the points on the curve. Okay, Pi is already there because the tangents have to meet, but after Pi, the second tangent will not be laid out. The contractor doesn't need the second tangent then. Okay, so second tangent will not be in the field. So that the stationing from PC onwards to any point on the curve, including PT, is always with reference to PC. For any point on the curve, including PT, the stationing will always be taken from PC. Okay, So from PC, PT is at the length L, okay, the length of the curve. Okay, so if you say that Pi plus T is also giving me the same answer, that means that means L should be 2 times of tangent length. If Pi plus PT, Pi plus T gives you the same answer as PC plus L, then L should be 2 times of tangent length, which is not the case. You can do 2 into tangent length, you will not get L. Okay, so L is shorter. So we will do PC plus L. Okay, and we will always do PC plus L. Pi plus T not applicable. Pi plus T not applicable. Not done in the field. Okay, because second tangent is not laid out. Okay, so it is 3066.7, which is a PC, and length is 293.5. Give me the station of PT.
3360.2.
0.2. So how do I write it? Stations.
3300 plus
3300.
plus 60.2.
Okay. Okay. So I hope it was clear. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Moving on. Concept of super elevation we discussed in the previous chapter as well. So super elevation is provided to the drivers to assist them in resisting the centripetal forces. So you can see we have a nice picture here, 3D picture, which I have taken from the internet. I should have put a reference here as well. Sorry for that. So your vehicle is moving in this direction initially straight, and then you are trying to turn it. Okay. So it will resist the turning. The motion of the vehicle will resist the turning. It was initially going straight. So whenever you try to change the motion, the path of the motion, it will resist. So we raise the outside edge of the road so that the vehicle is pushed towards the curve. So you can see the outside edge of the road is pushing the vehicle inside towards the curve. Okay, so it provides you an extra support and an extra resistance against the centripetal forces. Okay, super elevation. So super elevation is the slope of the outside edge. So it can be represented as decimals or percentage. Okay, like we did for the gradient as well. Now, how do we measure super elevation? Super elevation is measured as the difference in elevation between the inside and the outside edge of the road. So this distance. So inside edge is like 0. Okay, and then you measure the difference of elevation till the outside edge from 0. So this will be the total rise in the pavement, and it will always be rise because you are pushing inside, right? So you have to raise the outside edge. Outside edge is raised, so it's not negative. Super elevation is not negative. It's always going upward. Okay, so you raise it. Okay, and you will measure how much difference you have caused in the inside and the outside edge of the road. Okay, you measure the difference in elevation, and then you divide it by the width of the road. Divide by the width of the road. Okay, so it is, you can see here, it is completely different from the G value, the longitudinal gradient. The longitudinal gradient was along the length. So rise and fall of the road along the length. Okay, it can be negative and positive, and then it was divided by the length of the road. This is divided by the width of the pavement, width of the road. Okay, so this is how you calculate it, and this is the equation we used in the previous chapter as well. The equation between radius and super elevation, and S is the speed, and F is the coefficient of side friction. Okay, so this is the equation, and you can, so once you divide the difference of elevation with the width, you will have the answer in decimals, and then you multiply by 100 to convert it to percentage as well. Okay, both are acceptable. Normal super elevation between 4 to 12%. Between 4 to 12%. This is the normal range of super elevation, but there are some extra considerations that you have to make. Okay, you may not be able to use the full range for all the regions, for any region. Okay, what are the things which can change the range of super elevation? The climate condition, and we will discuss it later on. The terrain conditions, if the terrain is steep, I told you, then you should not provide the lower values. I told you in the previous lecture. If the terrain is level, try to provide the values in the lower range. Okay. Development density. So if the highway is crowded, not highway, the surrounding of the highway is crowded, congested, too many buildings and houses, which is normally the case with the urban area. So density is high. The development density is high means you have less space now. You have less space. So in less space, you may have to increase the super elevation to achieve the turning at the required speed. Okay. Then frequency of slow moving vehicles. Slow moving vehicles do not like steep slopes and steep gradients. So for slow moving vehicles, if they are coming very often, very frequently to your curve, then you have to reduce the value of the super elevation. So 4 to 12% is the normal range, but in some cases you have to be close to 4%. In some cases you have to be close to 12%, and the other part of the range may not be used. Okay, so I mentioned some practical. So these are the main points, but there are some other practical considerations as well. Okay, so 12% is the maximum super elevation. Okay, but when you make it close to 12%, the drivers start to feel uncomfortable, and they have problems in maintaining their lane. They have problems in maintaining their lane. You may observe it, and this is prominent on high-speed roads. So, for example, you have Sheikh Khalifa bin Salman Highway, Sheikh Isa bin Salman Highway, okay, Sheikh Salman Highway, highways which have speeds of 80 or 100 or more than that. If you are taking an exit from these highways, or you are coming on to these highways from some other entry point, from a ramp or something, the super elevation is so prominent that you can visualize it. You can see it from your eyes. You can actually see that the outside edge is raised so prominently than the inside edge. It is very prominent. Okay. So whenever you are entering one of these highways, these main highways with high speed, you can actually see the super elevation. So when a super elevation is high, now you can experience, and I told you in the previous lecture as well, drivers, when they are on steep gradients, they start to feel uncomfortable. It is natural. Okay, you are going in a steep gradient upward or downward, or you are going along the steep gradient, you will feel the acceleration, you will feel the excitement, you will feel the nervousness. Okay, and I gave you the example of the new drivers. They often brake on these circumstances because they don't feel comfortable. So they feel uncomfortable, and they will also have problems in maintaining their lane. So if the driver, if this super elevation is very steep, then what will happen? This driver cannot go in a circular path like this. He will go something like this. Okay, he may end up too much on the outside edge, or he may end up too much on the inside edge, and then he will try to balance himself. He will try to go back to the center, and so he will keep on going from one edge of the road, from one edge of the lane to the other edge of the lane. He will have problems in maintaining the position in the lane. Okay, so this happens when the super elevation is high, and why super elevation will be high? Because the speed is high. So on roads, I already gave the examples of names of few roads. Now when you are traveling on these roads, you come across a curve, you will see the super elevation, and you will see, maybe you are a good driver, but you may see some other drivers going along like this. Okay, when the pavement is wet because of snow or ice. Okay, so snowfall. Ice is when you have I don't know the word for it. I forgot the English word for it. When the snow is falling in the form of these like the hard snow. Snowfall is soft, ice is hard. Okay, so sometimes you have this type of snowfall when it is dropping in the form of hard like rocks. Okay, so you may have seen it in movies, movies where they are representing calamities and so on. You may have seen it. Okay, so it's like that. So when it drops, it can cause some damage. Snow is soft, very soft. Like snow is in the form of the crushed form, and ice is like in the form of crystal. Okay, hard crystal form. So because of any reason, if the pavement is wet because of snow or ice or rainfall or mud, then the maximum super elevation recommended is 8%. Okay, so if you are designing in an area where snowfall or icefall or rain is common, then you should take a value of 8%. Mud, why would mud be on the road? Mud comes on the highway with the water of the rainfall, and it comes when the sides of the road are undeveloped. They are made up of loose material. Okay, the loose sand or the loose ground surface is there. So when rainfall is there, with the rain, the mud comes onto the highway, and it cannot completely wash away until you do it yourself. So if these are the conditions, then if these conditions very often, they happen very often, okay, not once in a year. Once in a year is no problem. They are happening very often, then you go for super elevation at 8%. Areas where you have congestion, okay, so in congested areas, what will happen? Your speed will reduce. So in those cases, high super elevation is not required. Even the road speed says the road speed limit is 100, 120, but you know this junction where they are making the curve is most of the times, congested. So you may give a super elevation up to 6%. Okay, because of congestion, the speed will reduce. Okay, so the speed is not reducing because of the design. Speed is reducing because of the congestion, and you know that because you've already you have the knowledge of traffic there. So you can go. So it's a trick, it's a trick. Keep the high design speed, satisfy the drivers. They will feel satisfied, and then they are stuck in traffic jam. Reduce a super elevation. Okay. On low speed urban intersections, okay, intersections where the which are for low speed roads, for low speed streets, then the speed of the vehicle is already low because of the speed of the road. Then when it comes to the intersection, it is becoming lower. So then this is the case for a low speed turn. You remember in the last chapter we discussed high speed turn and low speed turn. For low speed turn, you don't need super elevation. For low speed turn, the radius of the curve does not come from that equation. It doesn't come from this equation. For low speed turn, the radius comes from the minimum radius required by the vehicle. So you go to the textbook or go to the design standards, and you see this is the size of my design vehicle and this is the radius which I need. You can provide it without super elevation. Okay, but you have to provide a cross-sectional slope for drainage. Cross-sectional slope for drainage should be provided like you provided for normal road, but super elevation needs not to be taken into account for the calculation of radius and so on. Okay, for low speed intersections, for intersection and low speed urban streets, because then they become a case for low speed turning. Okay, then you don't need to use the radius equation at all. These are the coefficient of the side frictions. Okay, and they depend upon the value of the speed. Okay, and you can see here if you compare this table with the table which we have used in the highway engineering textbook, this is much more detailed. You can see starts from 10, goes up to 80. Okay, that one was I think starting from 20 or something, and then you can see the values are given after every 5 miles per hour. In that table, the values were given after every 10 miles per hour. Okay, so this is more detailed. This table is more detailed. These F values are given for wet conditions, wet pavements, because in wet pavements the friction is less, so they become a worst case scenario. Then they are assuming wet conditions that the tire and the pavement are wet, but not completely wet. Let me put it this way. They are saying not top condition wet. Top condition wet means what? They are completely soaked. Okay, like the rainfall was happening for 1 hour and now you are driving on that road. So it is not for that condition. It is for normal medium mediocre type of wet. Okay, for normal rainfall. Okay, because heavy rainfalls even in many countries around the world is not for consistent periods, not for long periods. So normally the pavement becomes wet, but with drainage and everything, it will not be completely soaked. It's not like you are driving in a pool of water. Okay, so top condition is like you are driving in a pool of water. Okay, so that will be the top condition, like you have stood in under the shower for 1 hour. Okay, under the shower for 1 hour is like a verse, right? Anyways, I'm becoming a poet with the traffic engineering. Anyways, so it's not that much wet. Okay, So because top condition is again an extreme and it will not happen frequently. So we are trying to avoid the extreme condition. So it is wet to some extent. Okay. Let us look at an example. We are designing a road with a speed of 60 miles per hour, maximum super elevation 0.06. We have to find out the radius, okay, and the degree of the curve. Radius and degree of the curve. Okay. That should be included for this facility. Okay. So first of all, if I go to the equation of radius, speed is 60. Super elevation 0.06. Okay, then I need the f value. For f value, I have the table. You come to the table, speed of 60, f should be, yeah. Thank you. So f is 0.12. So give me the radius.
Radius is
133.
Sorry. Say again.
Good.
1333.
Okay,
0.3.
1.3. Okay, good. So the radius is 133.3. Let me write it somewhere. So this is the radius. Okay, I think I can just write it here. 133.3 feet. Okay, this is the radius. Now they are saying that okay, one more thing the student in the other section asked, so I will answer it here as well. If you have a value of value which is between the given values, if you have a speed which is between the given values like 62, 63, okay, or 51, something like this, you can do interpolation, or you should do interpolation. Okay, you should do interpolation to get the value of f. Okay, but if you look at the last four columns, and the values of f between the intermediate values, the value of f, the change in value of f between the consecutive values, 0.17, 0.16, 0.15. Okay, so they are very close to each other. So even if you do the interpolation, for example, if I give the value of 38, so if you do the interpolation, either you will get 0.17 or either you will get 0.16, right? It will be either 0.1699 something, or it may be, 0.1611 something. Okay, so you will do what? Either you will take 0.16 or 0.17. Okay, so the normal thing to do is, if you have a value between the given values, you should do interpolation. But you can see for speed which is 35 and above, interpolation will not make much difference. Okay, so if you are in this part of the table, if your speed value is in this part of the table, then you can take the closest value. But if you come to this part, see, so if I give you a value of 12, so you can interpolate between 0.38 and 0.32. Okay, between 0.38 and 0.32 you have enough margin. You can have a value of 0.36, 0.35, 0.34. Okay, so there is margin there. There's margin for interpolation there. But if your value is more than 35, even if you do the interpolation, you will end up with the closest value. Okay, so interpolation is the normal way to do it. But if your speed is more than 35, you can see interpolation will not make much difference. In that case, you can take the closest value. Okay, but if you are in this range, below 35, do the interpolation, find the exact value, because there is margin for interpolation here. Okay, the exact value may be different from the values which are given. Okay, so this is something which was asked in the other section, so I thought I should explain it here as well. Okay, second part of the same question, second part. For the same highway, now we want to know super elevation. If the radius is 1500 feet, so you calculated the radius, you gave to the client, make it 1333.33 feet. The client said, okay, I don't want to get into fractions and these small numbers. I will make it 1500. I'll put the radius 1500. The government said we will use a radius 1500. 1500 is fine. It's more than 1333.33 feet. It is fine. But with this radius, you have the margin that you can now change the super elevation. Okay, so if the radius is 1500 feet, what should be the super elevation? Okay, so I will go back to the same equation. This is 60 still, radius is 1500, and f is, for 60 it will be 0.12. Okay, same value. So give me the super elevation. How much super elevation is that? Yes, super elevation. Speed 60, radius 1500, f according to speed 0.12.
0.04.
0.04. Okay, now you see what happened when the super elevation was 0.06, the radius was 1333. When I increase the radius, super elevation reduced. Okay, and this is something which you can see from this picture as well. Okay, when you increase radius, super elevation would reduce, and vice versa. Okay, so super elevation is inversely proportional with the radius. Okay, and I told you in the previous slide that super elevation should be higher for higher design speeds. Super elevation should be higher for higher design speeds. Like I gave the example of the high speed roads, that the super elevation is so high that you can actually see it from your eyes. You can sense it from your eyes. So super elevation is directly proportional with speed and inversely proportional with radius. Okay. Okay, now how do we achieve super elevation? So we have the normal slope of the road, which they are calling as drainage super elevation. In other books, they call it normal crown. I prefer this because this will save you from any confusion. Normal crown. Okay, so this is the normal crown of the road. You can see it here. This is the normal crown of the road. So it's like a two-way triangle or two triangles, right? So they are calling it as drainage super elevation. So from normal super elevation, from drainage super elevation, you have to go to the super elevation required for the curve. And I told you in the previous lecture that everything must happen gradually. Any change which you are making on the highway must happen gradually. Okay, or maybe I didn't say it, sorry. But anyways, whenever you are making any change on the highway, it must happen gradually. So to go from normal crown to full super elevation, or in other words, to go from normal drainage super elevation to full super elevation or curve super elevation, you need to do it in steps. So we do it in 2 steps. There are 2 steps involved, main 2 steps involved, and then I will show you the detail later on as well. These 2 steps are tangent runoff and super elevation runoff. Tangent runoff and super elevation runoff. Tangent runoff means what? Now keep in mind, for super elevation, we need to raise the outside edge of the road. Okay, or you can say in other words, we need to raise obviously you cannot just raise the edge, you will raise the whole lane, right? So for super elevation, we need to raise the outside lane of the road to the value of the super elevation. So in tangent runoff, you raise the outside lane of the road from the normal drainage super elevation to flat slope, 0% slope. So whatever was the normal slope, you change the lane, the slope, you change that slope of the outside lane to a flat position. Okay, so from here to here, we call it tangent runoff. The length in which you are making the slope of the outside lane of the road from normal drainage super elevation to flat condition. Okay, or from normal crown to flat condition. This is tangent runoff. Then the next step is known as super elevation runoff. In super elevation runoff, outside lane plus any lane which doesn't have slope equal to super elevation is raised to the value of full super elevation. Okay, in super elevation runoff, the outside lane plus any lane which doesn't have slope equal to full super elevation is raised to the value of full super elevation. For example, let's say the outside lane is flat now. Okay, so it will be raised from flat to 3%. Done. let's say the inside lane, the normal slope of the inside lane was 3%, and you require a super elevation of 4%. Okay, so this 3% must also be changed to 4%, right? So in super elevation runoff, this will also be, this edge, this lane will also be raised so to 4% slope, which is the required super elevation. Okay, so in full super elevation, you may be rotating all the lanes to achieve the full super elevation. So in the end, the whole road must be along the same slope, which is the full super elevation. Okay, now for example, if your super elevation was 3%, okay, so the outside lane is now 0, so you raise it from 0 to 3%, and the inside is already 3%, so no need to change it here. So in super elevation runoff, all lanes may not be changed. Okay, all lanes may not be changed. If the inside lane already has a slope which is the required super elevation, don't need to change it. Okay, now this change happens like I said in two parts. So tangent runoff, now you are giving super elevation for the curve, right? Super elevation related to the curve. So this is the curve now. Okay, when the driver is here, the curve the curve should start from here when the road is at super elevation. The curve should start here when the road is at super elevation. Okay, full super elevation. Okay, so from normal to flat, the tangent runoff happens on the tangent. The tangent runoff happens on the tangent. Okay, then from flat to full super elevation, which is a super elevation runoff, happens on a transition curve. So like I said in the first lecture yesterday, that we have some transitional elements as well, which are used to join the curve with the tangent. So this is the transition element now. Okay, so what will happen? So this is your case now. So tangent runoff will happen here on the tangent. Okay, now you can see the dark gray portion is the transition curve. Okay, the spiral transition curve. So the super elevation runoff will start from here and it will end here. So when you end up with super elevation runoff, you have acquired full super elevation. Now your curve can begin. So your curve will begin from here to here. So the light gray portion is the actual circular curve, and then you have the transition curve again, and then you have the tangent again. Okay, so this is the position when the curve should begin. This should be the position of the road, the cross section of the road when the curve is beginning. Okay, so this is what they are indicating here. Okay, so tangent runoff happens on the tangent. Super elevation runoff can happen on the transition curve. Okay, can happen. As I said, it is usually the case for high speed roads. Okay, transition curve is mainly provided for high speed roads, as I said yesterday. Okay, rotation of super elevation. Rotation means achieving the super elevation. Okay, achieving the super elevation. Okay, I think this is, yeah, this is the last slide. So you can have undivided highways or divided highways. Undivided means without median, divided means with median. Undivided highway means without median, divided means with median. For undivided highways, the rotation happens along the center line. Okay, now what do we mean rotation around the center line, or rotation around the inside edge, or rotation around the outside edge? When I say around this line, it means that line will not change its elevation. The rest of the road will change its elevation to achieve super elevation. For example, if I come here, okay, let's say if it is the rotation around the center line. Okay, if this is the rotation around the center line, or let me come here. Okay, this will be better. Yeah. So let's say this is rotation around the center line. So center line elevation will not change. So elevation of this edge of the road is changing. You can see it here. It is raising and then it is further raised. Okay. And if the inside lane doesn't have the super elevation required, then from here to here, you are doing what? The inside lane is going down now, so that I can achieve the required slope. So let's say the inside lane is 3%. Now I want to make it 4%. And I'm doing the rotation around the center line. So that means center line is not changing. The inside edge of the road is going down. Center line is at its own place. Center line is at its own place. It is not changing. So this will be known as rotation around the center line, which is normally the case for divided highways. Highways which do not have median, they are rotated along the center line. So the center line elevation doesn't change. You lift the outside edge of the road and you reduce the elevation of the inside edge of the road to achieve the super elevation. Okay, so it is, let me, or I will show you here as well. You can see it here. Okay, now what is happening? This is a normal cross flow, normal drainage cross flow. Then from here to here, you can see this is the outside edge. The right hand side is the outside edge. So from the first to the second part, we are doing tangent runoff. See, tangent runoff. So from normal to flat. Okay, then the outside edge will be rotated further. It will be raised further to match the slope of the inside lane. Okay, so at this point, both lanes have the same slope now and the same direction. Here the slope may have been the same. The normal slope is normally the same, but in different directions. But here you can see it's the same lane in the same direction. So both lanes are raised now. The inside as well as the outside lane, both are raised now, and they have the same slope. Okay, so this is part of the super elevation runoff. So from here to here, it was tangent runoff. Now from here onwards, we have a start of super elevation runoff. And within super elevation runoff, this is one intermediate step that both lanes achieve the same slope. Okay. If this slope is equal to super elevation, good. That means the inside lane was already along super elevation. So then you don't need the last step. But if, which will be the case, that the normal slope is not equal to super elevation, then you will have to further raise both the lanes, or you have to further change the slope of both the lanes to acquire the super elevation. So from here to here, from third to fourth, what is happening? If it is around the center line, then what is happening? I am raising this edge, okay, and I am lowering down this edge, okay, so that I can achieve a higher slope. Okay, so this is what is happening from here to here. If it is rotation around the center line, because I cannot change the elevation of the center line. So if I maintain this elevation, then I have to increase here and I have to decrease here. Okay, so this is when you are rotating one lane. Okay, this is for rotating two lanes, this is for rotating three lanes. So when I'm saying I'm rotating one lane, I'm talking about the outside lane. Okay, so the highway has double number of lanes which I'm rotating. The number of lanes of the highway are double, right? I'm only talking about the outside lane here. One lane rotated means one outside lane. Two lanes rotated means two outside lanes. So I have two inside lanes as well, right? Highways have both equal number of lanes in both directions. So two lanes rotated means I have 4 lanes. 3 lanes rotated means I have 6 lanes. Okay. So this is how you achieve. And between this one and this one and this one, the only change is the number of lanes. The procedure is the same procedure. Now, if it is highway with a median, let me make it here. If it is highway with a median, so this is the median. In this case, this direction of the highway will be rotated separately, and this direction of the highway will be rotated separately. Okay, so in both cases, you may have the same value of super elevation, but their rotation is achieved separately, independently. Okay, here you can see the whole road is rotated simultaneously. Here, median remains the same. Median remains the same. For divided highways, the elevation of median remains the same. So you are rotating around this edge, which is the outside edge for this direction, and then you are rotating around this edge, which is the inside edge for this direction. So when you have a divided highway, you are rotating around the inside edge or around the outside edge, depending upon the position of the median. If the median is on the outside edge, then you're rotating around the outside edge, meaning what? Median will remain as it is, and the other parts of the road are being lowered or being raised, and same thing for the other side as well. Okay, so obviously if you are rotating around the outside edge, then these lanes need to be lowered down, right? Because the outside edge needs to be raised, so to have higher elevation of outside edge, the other part of the road needs to be going down. And if you are rotating around the inside edge, if the median is inside the road on the inside part of the curve, then you are rotating around this edge, meaning this edge will remain the same, and the other part of the road is going up. The remaining part of the road is going up. Okay, so it is happening in two different directions in two different manners around the median. Okay. Hope it was clear. Took 5 minutes extra. Okay. Attendance: Hissa Ahmad, Ali Khalil. Hissa Ahmad and Ali Khalil. Qusay Ahmad and Mahmoud Isa. Qusay Ahmad is here. Mahmoud Isa.
Yes.
Yusuf Ahmad and Ziad Tariq.
Yes, doctor.
Yusuf is here. Okay. Aura Nasir and Ali Muhammad. Ali is here. Aura is here. Okay. Balkis. Okay. Hala is here. Balkis Muhammad. Okay. Balkis is here. Umar Walid and Abdul Rahman Muhammad. Umar Walid, Abdul Rahman Muhammad. Abdul Rahman is here. Umar Walid. Sara Ali Qadim and Umar Muhammad. Sara Ali and Umar Muhammad. Umar is here. Sara Ali is here. Okay. Muntadir Hussain. Muntadir Hussain. Ahmad Muhammad Mahdi. Okay, he's here. Sara Khamis and Zainab Ali Muhammad. Sara Khamis, Zainab. Okay. Okay, done. Anybody from section 1?
Doctor, section 1.
Okay.
Section 1, doctor.
Yeah. Okay, who are these people now? Allah, okay. Sadiq. Okay, Sadiq. Who is from section 1?
Me, doctor. Yeah, Abdullah.
Abdullah Muhammad Misbah, section 1, sure. Okay, done. See you guys on Thursday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.